Last Picture Show with Rahim Khan, and continuing with our year enders, we now move on to the best documentaries of 2025. Something like that. I shouldn't start off with this story because it may, well, I don't even know who's watching, but thank you very much for those of you who are. But let's hope it doesn't get, the FBI doesn't catch wind of this, because of course I was acquiring a movie online, and I was in particular looking for Raoul Peck's 2 + 2 = 5, Orwell 2 + 2 = 5, a documentary he did for HBO. And when I did acquire it, it turned out to be another movie. It turned out to be this, I don't know, like a movie about drag queens and vampires or something like that. I can't believe that sort of somebody, I think it was a joke. I think they were playing a joke on people like us who do acquire movies in such a fashion. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch that, even though I'm a fan of him. That last documentary series that he did for HBO was fantastic. And if ever an indictment were to exist of the white man, that is the movie. That is a documentary series. So unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch that. Another one that I have gotten, but I think I'm going to treat that more as like a TV series because it was released episodically. Like I think there were 5 episodes or 4 episodes, was Mr. Scorsese, of course, about Martin Scorsese. But yeah, I think I'm going to treat that sort of like, you know, as a TV series as opposed to like sort of a feature-length documentary. So excluding that one as well. Other than that, of course, we have quite a list. These aren't necessarily, so some of these are the best. Some of these are also honorable mentions and just ones that like I think that warrant addition to this list. So in no particular order, I'm going to start off with, and there's a bunch of Netflix ones on this. So you know I sort of take full advantage of my Netflix subscription. The first one, yes, there it is. Okay, the first one is The Twister, Caught in the Storm. Now, thanks to, of course, Jan de Baan's Twister back in 1996, and then, of course, the one that we got last year, sort of Twisters sort of forever hold our interest. But then, you know, sort of there's this fascination with it. And, you know, we do see the sort of ferocity, the fury of this natural phenomena in these movies, thanks to, of course, you know, special effects and all of that stuff. But to have it described, to have somebody who lived to tell the tale talk about it is just in, you know, equal parts chilling, equal parts fascinating. So this one in particular, this documentary recounts this twister, of course, descending upon, I'm forgetting where exactly in America, but it's of course that Tornado Alley states. And this particular town, as often happens with twisters, it descends upon them without warning. And there's almost like, you know, sort of split-second reactions. And in particular, I mean, like, you know, there's this one moment that I mentioned over on our best scenes of the year, in which this person recounts how he was literally sucked from his car and, you know, sort of the twister took him away. He lives to tell the tale, of course. So it's just that, it's this first person account of this devastation that hopefully not many of us will ever get to experience. But I mean, sort of, while, I mean, in disaster movies, people often walk away, you know, you just see like, you know, a tractor or a cow get swooped up by the twister. But in this case, these are, you know, real people, real losses. And there are many who did not, you know, sort of, for them, that was it. So yeah, this was riveting stuff. I really liked it. Becoming Led Zeppelin. Everyone loves concert movies. And this isn't as much of a concert movie. But, okay, music documentaries, you know, sort of love them, right? And of course, to have, I would say, a definitive documentary told. And it's not technically definitive because this documentary covers, I would say, the first, I think, the start right up to, I would say, the first album, or is it the second album? Something like that, right? And of course, it has all of them, except for John Bonham, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, and why do we always forget the bassist? I'm sorry, my apologies. But you have all of them, and of course they are John Paul Jones. Got it. You have all of them, from the horse's mouth, recounting, of course, how the band came together, how the music came together, how a lot of the stuff just happened, and they created music history. And of course, I would say it is sort of a bit of a concert album in that they have like sort of their Royal Albert Hall performance in it, and sort of like, it's also like a bit of a music video because, for example, Ramble On has, them and sort of going off to, the States and all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think it is, for me at least, I don't think there are any other music documentaries this year, but at least ones that I saw. But for me, really, really good, Becoming Led Zeppelin. Okay, this one is in parts tragic, scary, and I'm trying to put into words what one felt while watching this, because first of all, it is a testament to the filmmaker's ability and to the medium, number one. But then also, you are left so, I would say, frustrated and angry by watching this. Because, okay, I'm talking about The Perfect Neighbour, another Netflix one, in which the entire documentary is composed of, I would say, archival footage in this case, but it is all body cam footage and sort of dash cam footage of this. So in this particular case, it's a neighborhood, I think this is Florida, it's a neighborhood in, that is predominantly, I would say, African American, but there happens to be one Karen of a lady, and by that there's an implication that she's of course also white. And she is old, she's ornery, and she just does not get along with anybody else. And sort of like, she's always rubbed the wrong way whenever, like, the kids are out on the street playing, or sort of they're on the lawn in front of her house, and this sort of just keeps on building and escalating and building to an unfortunate and tragic end. And that's, I think, what is most scary about it, and B, what is just so pointless. It's scary because the thing is that any nut with a gun can literally, not in this case mouth off, but just like, shoot and sort of end somebody's existence over a trifle. And that's what this was. It's also sort of so pointless because, again, as I said, the contention, the arguments in this case were like nothing. It was just kids playing. And I mean, but again, this woman just seemed trouble. And there is justice at the end of this movie. Maybe not for the family, but at least for us as viewers. But again, what is supreme about this movie is that, again, they are able to make an entire narrative out of body cam footage, out of dash cam footage, And that is what really, really stands out about this movie. I mean, we've seen, of course, movies put together just using sort of, again, archival and all of that stuff. But, For All Mankind, if you remember that wonderful documentary. But in this case, because again, in that, you tend to have so much, in that case, because the thing is that there was so much footage. In this case, it is just limited to the interactions of whenever the police are on call, whenever, all of that happens. But again, they're able to weave a story out of it all. And it's just amazing. I was very impressed. And The Perfect Neighbor is a must-see, a must-watch for those of you who are interested in documentaries, true crime, so on and so forth. Another very interesting one, one that is extremely relevant, very pertinent to what's been going on for the past 2 years, of course, the Gaza genocide. And this is Louis Theroux's The Settlers. Was it feature length? I don't think it was feature length. I think it was under 60 minutes. And so it kind of falls into TV realm. But I mean, you know, if you want, I mean, this documentary is proof enough of the illegitimacy of Israel's cause, if you will, because in it he follows, for the most part, the godmother of the settler movement in America. Sorry, not in America, in Israel. And what is her name? Daniela Weiss. And in that Louis Theroux fashion of him just letting, even in Werner Herzog fashion, where they just let the speaker just speak, and sort of if you leave the camera running long enough, they speak their mind. And this woman speaks her mind. And if this does not gall you, if it does not shock you, if it does not incense you, then we clearly know where your sympathies lie. But it is essential viewing, essential viewing. I wish that I was able, but it hasn't come on. Sorry, it hasn't come online yet. And that is, of course, Dispatches from Ground Zero, which is, you know, what's it called? Documentary made by Gazans during the genocide. And I just haven't been able to find it. So I wasn't able to. I would have added it, of course, to the list or even commented on it, but don't know when it will be released. Then there was, of course, the encampments about the student protests, in the pro-Palestinian student protests. I did not watch it. I think I should have, but I kind of let it slip, which is my bad. I should have watched that. Next, another one from Netflix, which is just equal parts devastating, and again, sort of for true crime lovers, really, really good. And this is A Deadly American Marriage. I know the title is very salacious. It sounds very sensational, but this one is interesting because it's about an Irish man who marries a lady, an American lady. He then relocates to America, and over this tragic altercation, I would say, he is killed, and implicated in it are the lady and his wife and her father, and thus you go down this sort of rabbit hole almost of did they, didn't they? And I remember watching it, and I was just glued to my seat, man. I was like, oh. Only God knows in this circumstance. Who do we believe? Really good, really good. And easily missed because of the title alone. A Deadly American Marriage doesn't inspire too much confidence. Doesn't inspire too much confidence. Another true crime one, this time from HBO. And again, the senselessness of crime, it sounds cliche to say the senselessness of crime. I will say the senselessness of this particular crime, because in it, and I'm referring to, this is a docuseries, The Yogurt Shop Murders, in which I think it was three teenage girls, while in Austin, Texas, while closing up this particular yogurt shop, are gunned down, are executed, and then their bodies burned. And one of them is what's it called, believed to have been sexually assaulted. She was sexually assaulted. And a crime that, of course, scarred the families, scarred the city, but then also scarred those who were falsely accused of these crimes. Again, for true crime lovers, this is a real addition to the to the genre, a real addition to that sort of like library of greats. And again, I was just struck by this fact that in this particular case, it's not like the yogurt shop had sort of millions in a safe, and that's why these women, these girls were struck down. It's not like this was a revenge or something like that, or a hate crime or anything like that. I mean, to this very day, almost 30 years on, the families have to deal with the fact that they will never know why this happened. And even we as audience, as viewers, are still scratching our heads. Why did this happen? There's a bunch of Netflix ones on this. I'm sorry, but they were really good ones too. This is, of course, Katrina Come Hell and High Water. So this is an interesting one because the thing is that it was a three-parter. The first two, of course, deal with the events before and after, of course, and during, of course, all of Hurricane Katrina, right? And of course, interviews with those directly affected and everyone involved. That's okay. And even that is just like sort of, it's by the numbers, really good, okay, cool. But then what's really the icing on the cake in this one is the third installment in this, the third episode, because it is a feature length that's directed by Spike Lee, and I think all of his creative energies, instead of going towards highest to lowest, ended up here because it's really good. I mean, sort of, it's done with this verve, with this sort of energy that sort of calls upon sort of the culture of New Orleans. I was going to say New Orleans, but I'm sorry. New Orleans, the people, that sort of vibrancy that entire culture has. But then, I mean, sort of there are sort of additions of like, somebody doing these spoken word pieces during the documentary, sort of the call and response between sort of Spike Lee behind the camera and of course his interview subjects. And just, it's really well done. It was really, I mean, sort of, again, Katrina Come Hell and High Water, if it were just the first two episodes, then, it would just be, it'd be like, okay, I enjoyed watching it. But then adding this to it, really sort of like it bookshelved the entire thing. Like, nice added, not bookshelf, what am I talking about? Bookend, like added a nice bookend to the entire thing. But it just really is also sort of showing how you can sort of play with the format. Because on the one hand, you have a very straightforward talking heads type, sort of archival footage type thing. And then you have something like this, in which you are going back to the scene of the crime almost and talking to people and just seeing sort of, has anything changed 30 years on? Another one from Netflix, and this is Sunday Best. This is, I wasn't expecting, I didn't plan on watching this, but I didn't really have anything to watch on the day. So I was like, okay, let's check this out. This is, of course, about Ed Sullivan and his show, and how Ed Sullivan became this sort of cultural figure, an iconic figure, in part because he had a nose for talent. He was always able to sort of find, and discover almost like, sort of these people who would go on to become sort of legends in their own right, but also how he was a champion for civil rights and for sort of like, equal representation, and having so many African American performers on stage, on his show, on the Ed Sullivan Show. So yeah, I mean, sort of, this was a quiet one. I wasn't expecting to be this good, but I really enjoyed it. Yes, there's a couple of more Netflix ones. Bear with me. As a series, I will just quickly mention these in passing. Netflix has a really good one that is, of course, Untold, and the Trainwreck series. Both were really good. They had some really interesting stories this time around. So check it out. Okay. The Sexiest Man in Winnipeg. There's that, I think that there's that Winnipegian, if that's how they refer to themselves, director. I think it's Guy Madden, or that one guy, I'm forgetting his name. But I thought this was one of his, because his movies tend to deal with sort of his particular neck of the woods in Canada. So I thought this was that, but it's not. But the story is so interesting because this is about, again, the sexiest man in Winnipeg, a newscaster who became like a local legend, right? But then in this, unfortunate series of events, he falls on hard times and he becomes a bank robber. It's not funny to laugh at another man's misfortune, but like, it's a story that I wasn't expecting. And I like how sort of this is both recounting that, but then is also sort of delving into this man's psychology and his past and why he is who he is and what led to his sort of downfall and him becoming sort of, from hero to zero, unfortunately. And also they even go on to, he goes on to meet with, like, for example, I think it was the bank teller or one of those people who he sort of, stuck up, like, who he had not even at gunpoint, he didn't even have a gun, but at supposed gunpoint. So yeah, this was a really interesting one for the story. The Age of Disclosure. I reviewed this here on The Last Picture Show, primarily because I was so, I will say, wowed by the fact that normally when you do have documentaries about aliens, I mean, Netflix did a bunch, just one this last year in 20, they've done a bunch of these. You often get like, you take it with like a healthy tablespoon of salt, like, yeah, this is just like, it's for entertainment's sake, maybe most of what they're saying is like bullshit. But when you have everyone, and of course, in light of recent events, I don't think I'm going to sort of hold him in very high regard, Marco Rubio. But when you have people like him, Congress people, senators, MIT professors, people with, PhDs and sort of like, credentials as long as my arm, from the military, serving, so on and so forth, all come out on record and say, yes, we are not alone, UFOs exist. Then you got to sit up and take notice. And that is exactly what this documentary is. Now, I said this in my review, and I will say it again here. The level of access that they have in this movie, as well as almost points to a sort of admission by the US government, without actually, of course, saying it, like officially, that yes, sort of aliens exist. And sort of for those who have been maligned and discredited and laughed at over the years for having said that, sort of we had encounters, we were abducted, or anything of the sort, this movie is almost validation. The Age of Disclosure. Yeah, okay. Sean Combs' The Reckoning. Everyone saw this, man. Everyone saw this. I mean, it took 50 Cent, and his victory lap, he executive produced this, to say like it even beat Stranger Things. Because everyone and their uncle and their aunt saw this one. And of course we were going to see this one, because the thing is that I'm not saying that this was the best of the year, but I think it was the most notable of the year, because, his fall from grace, and what a fall it's been, is stuff for the history books. And, we had like an entire year of Diddy memes, baby oil and just so much Diddy stuff, that I think this was necessary. This had to happen. I was slightly disappointed by it, because the thing is that it gets into sort of every nook and cranny of this man's life, all the minutiae, all the details, all of the accusations. And the reason why I even referenced the memes, alluded to them, is because on the one hand, we had so much said about all of that stuff, his freak-offs and all of that. But very little of it actually makes, it's only mentioned in passing. I wonder why. I wonder why there was not more insight into those. I wonder, maybe, they were limited to it, because it is interesting how these people were able to gain access to footage that Diddy himself shot. Well, not himself, but he hired someone to shoot it in his very last days of being a free man. So I'm surprised. Well, that, of course, is an achievement in itself. But then also, getting access to the people. And sort of, I had never seen this footage before, but that footage in that hotel, what's it called, hallway, of him beating up Cassie. Oh my God, that was difficult to watch. And the very fact that he was not sent to jail on, well, in England they call it GBH, in America I think it's battery or assault or whatever. He was sent on racketeering and all of those things. Is just, it says a lot about the criminal justice system. But yeah, I really wanted them to sort of get into the freak-offs, man. Cover Up, another Netflix one, and a really, really good one, because this is Laura Proya. Is that her name? The one who did, the lady who did Edward Snowden one and all of these really good documentaries. She's one of the best. And this is, of course, looking back at the life of Seymour Hersh, with Seymour Hersh, the celebrated, legendary, investigative journalist, responsible for such, scoops as the My Lai massacre during the Vietnam War, Abu Ghraib, the Abu Ghraib, torture and abuses, a lot of these things. So on the one hand, you have sort of him talking about his life. And I love how honest this man is, because the thing is, he's very clear. And they even mentioned this at the start of the movie, that sort of the movie was first proposed to him almost 20 years ago. And he said, no, I'll do it when I'm ready. And now he is ready almost, 20 years later. But during it, he very clearly says that I don't trust you people. And at one point, he's even like, you know what? Because I think he is so protective of his sources, and he does not want sort of this documentary in any way to expose them, that at one point he's like, I can't do this anymore, I'm getting up, I don't want to do this anymore. But what's also interesting about this is that during the filming of it, they also have asides where he is in conversation with people who witnessed war crimes in Gaza. And I have yet to see those pieces written by him, or maybe they have been written and I haven't seen them. But that's really good. So this guy, this bloodhound, is still on the scent. Good on Seymour Hersh. Sorry. Now, lastly, I'm going to be talking about a movie that everyone has been raving about, and sort of they're saying that it is the best of the year. It is the best of the year. And I'm lucky that, again, it was able to come online in time. And that is, of course, Predators. This is a documentary about the TV show, To Catch a Predator, in which the documentary, of course, looks back at this particular show. The show, of course, was about, it was a news show in which child predators were almost entrapped. There was they set up this entire thing in which these child predators were in conversation with adults posing as minors. And then they were lured to sort of a house in which they were confronted on camera by the host of that show. I'm forgetting his name. And at the time, the series, the series was a massive hit. And I mean, let's be honest, they did do good in the world. I mean, they caught these people who, I mean, let's be honest, I mean, sort of probably have done this before, and were now being brought to justice. Of course, the show was controversial because, again, many thought it was entrapment, and in particular, one of the perpetrators, if you will, who turned out to be, I think, a local DA, I'm not sure from where, he is caught on camera committing suicide. I mean, I think as the camera crew roll up to his house with the police, I think they open the door and I'm not sure, I'm forgetting if they hear a gunshot or if they actually film it, I'm not sure. So there is that. There is also, of course, the director of this movie, whose name I'm forgetting, also coming to terms with the abuse that happened to him. So that's an interesting part of this movie. And then, of course, they are also talking to, that same host of the show. They're talking to people all who are involved in it after all of these years and sort of, I wouldn't say reminiscing, but at least sort of discussing, sort of whether or not what they were doing was right. In the case of that particular anchor and host, he's still doing it, but now I think it's a YouTube channel. I know, again, a lot of people are saying that this is like one of the best documentaries of the year. For me, honestly, it didn't do it. Because the thing is that there are a lot of times when I feel that there's the documentarian, the director is trying to get sort of like this aha gotcha moment when he is interviewing, particularly that host and other people, in that maybe, what you were doing ruined lives, in this case, of course, the perpetrators. And then you have to ask yourself whether or not that is the right thing, because again, these people are potential or, they actually did it, child sexual abusers. So, the host, that newsman, he says that I have no qualms about this. Now, in one case, I think that there I'm in agreement with at least the director on this one. And that was, I think, not a case of, I think the individual in question was 18, or maybe he was 17 and he had just turned 18, and the girl in question was 16. So there, at least, I mean, considering the age gap, because in most of the other cases, I mean, those men are in their 30s, they're in their 40s, and at least even in their 20s, but at least the person they think they're talking to is meant to be like a 12 or 13, like a preteen or a teenager, like a 13, 14-year-old. So in that, the age gap is considerable. But in this case, it was like sort of this very fine line. And in that case, I think the boy's life was ruined. So there, at least, you have to ask the question, were they right in doing that? Or should they have even aired that episode? In others, of course, it's very, very clear cut. And I don't think anyone can have any sort of qualms about what they were doing. So I like the honesty of the director for having brought in, his own unfortunate experiences into play in this documentary. But I don't know, I didn't feel as won over by it as other what's it called, critics. So that is, of course, the best documentaries of 2025. Here's now to 2026.